Hey, I'm David Dylan Thomas, and today, in honor of Indigenous Peoples Day, which was earlier this week, I want to talk about the Siksika Nation. It's part of the Blackfoot Confederacy, and you'll find them kind of in the Alberta, Montana area. And they came on my radar because of this guy. This is Abraham Maslow of the famous Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And this is a psychological concept that says people have these kind of five levels of needs, and baseline is like physiological food and shelter. And then you get to things like safety, like employment. Then you get like love and belonging, which is like friendship and family. And at the very top of this, you have this notion of being self-actualized, like kind of a complete person. So a couple things about this. One is that Maslow never really imagined it as a pyramid. That was something that a designer kind of came up with later, and I think maybe a management consultant. But the other kind of misconception is that it's like a leveling up process, like in a video game. Like first you got to deal with the physiological needs, and then you can move on to safety, then love and belonging. The way Maslow saw it, humans were going after all five at the same time, all the time. It's just that more people had probably conquered the physiological part, and then a few less than that had, attained kind of the safety, and then a few less than that, the love and belonging, and then at the very tippy top, maybe 10% of any given population had gotten to that self-actualized stage. So while Maslow's working on this is like the 1930s. He has a friend who's living with the Siksika and says, "Hey, you should come out to this village. I think it'll help you with your theory." So he goes out there, and one of the first things he notices is that instead of, 10% of the Siksika being self-actualized, it's more like all of them. And at the same time, the whites in the village, well, here's what he had to say about the whites in the village. "The more I got to know the whites in the village, who were the worst bunch of creeps and bastards I'd ever run across in my life, the more it got paradoxical." So what he had discovered is that the Siksika, instead of using the term self-actualized, would probably use a term more like Nidapatapi, which is someone who's completely developed, has arrived, right? And instead of believing that this is a state you attain through long, hard trials or going through a journey, they believed you were born this way. Now, think about the impacts of that assumption. If you think about child rearing and parenting, right? You don't have to be really strict because you don't have to make your child good. They're already good. You just have to make sure that they don't get eaten by a bear and maybe teach them how to fish. If you think about crime, right? A person didn't commit a crime because they're an evil person and they need to be locked away or maybe even killed. They're a good person. So we just need to figure out why they did that thing. And maybe there are things they need to do differently, but maybe there are things we as a society have to do differently. And it ends up looking a lot more like public health or like a restorative justice process. But my favorite is what this does to the notion of wealth. This is Maslow talking here. "For the Blackfoot, wealth was not measured by money and property, but by generosity. The wealthiest man in their eyes is the one who has almost nothing because he has given it all away." So they would literally have these giving circles where they would get together and talk about who had given what that year. And I want you to picture, like, let's say you're playing a video game, and the only way for you to advance in the video game is not to get points, but to give points away. So what are you going to be spending a lot of that game doing? Looking for people to give your points to. And as a result, Maslow had a hard time finding poverty in that village because, of course, he did. The second anybody is down on their luck, the whole rest of the village rushes in to try to make them whole. So I want us to think about what would happen if we built the web based on the assumption that everyone is good and worth helping, not just the ones who we can take their data, not just the ones who like can pay us directly, right? But everybody. And while this may seem foreign to the tech world, there's actually little hints of it here and there. So there's a process, some of you may know, it's called a stand-up, and it's a meeting that you have while you're working on a project. And the idea is you get your whole team together at the beginning of the day, and every one of them in turn answers the same three questions. First question, what did you do yesterday? Second, what are you going to do today? And third question, do you have any blockers? Meaning, is there anything getting in the way of you doing your work? Now, that third question, do you have any blockers, is actually a very strengths-based question, because the assumption is if something's going wrong with a project, it's not because you suck. No, you're Nita Patapi. If something's going wrong, something must be in your way. And what's more, it's our job to get it out of your way. So I think I would love to see that attitude and the generosity expand to the rest of our work in tech or just in life. But I think there are a lot of lessons in there for us. So that's all for this time. Please feel free to like and subscribe. And remember, I can come out and help give a talk or workshop for your organization. And we will see you next time.